Ruth says that Mother always cut the holes in the dough a particular way. That I don't remember. Because Ruth does it the same way, and how it is I don't know. Isn't that funny that pies are part of the memory of
Sure.
all of us?
Just flour. Flour every place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a kind of a mother picture to me.
When you divvy up jobs at home on Saturday, the worst one was to do the breakfast dishes, because that's when Mother did her baking, and you never got through doing the dishes, because there was always one more pan and one more bowl, you know. Do anything rather than that.
I often tell people about how nice it was growing up in our family because I never had to make my bed.
I didn't realize that.
It's true,
Uh-huh.
because the girls made all the beds.
Yeah, yeah.
Not only did they make them, but they did a really good job.
Yeah.
The sheets were tight. And,
Yeah. Now see, one of the things she did to cut down on her washing was just change one sheet.
Mhm.
The what was the top went on the bottom in reverse.
Sure.
Uh-huh. But now Ruth remembers the sheets being made out of unbleached muslin and sewed together to make sheets.
I see.
They couldn't afford sheets.
Mhm.
I'm not aware of that. But, you know, it's funny, the years, the difference of your memories.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. That much older, she remembers unbleached muslin sheets.
So then, after you left Stevens College,
Well, then I spent a year at BYU, and I was Kay's roommate. We had an apartment there. I still go by that house once in a while and see that apartment. But, and now that's when Bill came down. That's when we were engaged, that fall.
Bill came down from Laramie,
No, by this time he was out of school
was he?
and working in Whirland. He was worked the grazing service in the CCC camp in Whirland as an engineer, camp engineer.
The grazing service?
Uh-huh. So they built water holes.
Mhm.
What's another word for that?
Water holes.
Well, all right, you know,
Reservoirs?
reservoirs and roads and what have you. But he was basically with the grazing service.
But he was not one of the CCCs.
Well, he was an officer, so to speak,
Uh,
with them. Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah.
And this was obviously before the war started.
Yeah, yeah, because that year, see, that would be 1940 and 41 when I went to BYU. I came home at Christmas time. Somebody the other day was asking me about, did I remember when we were courting? But our courting was all done by correspondence.
Yeah, I was just about to say, if you were at Stevens College for 2 years.
Well, of course, I wasn't dating him then. It
No.
was that year I was in Provo that he proposed. So we had my Christmas vacation together. Before the school year was over, he had enlisted, gone into the service, and they sent him to California, and it was the wrong spot. Took him a week or so to find out where he belonged, which should have been in Illinois. So they gave him some time to be home on his way home. So we had that time in June.
But how did this all
And then
start?
we were married in the following February.
But how did it all start? When did you or he or both of you ever first get the idea?
Oh, well,
It'd be
then
nice to-
when I was home in the summertime, before Provo, and while I was at Provo, that we made it official. And I remember talking to Dad, coming to Mother and Dad, and Bill asked for my hand. And I was so disappointed for just a minute, because Dad, who was always been the biggest man in the world, looked up at Bill like that. And that's the first time I was aware that Dad wasn't as tall, you know. And I was kind of disappointed that Bill was that tall, just for, you know, that fleeting moment, because he looked up at me.
I guess Bill's 6'2", is he?
Yeah, yeah.
So he's 3 inches taller than Dad.
Yeah. So then we went on. This was the Christmas of 1940. Yeah. We went over and told Mrs. Griever about it. And she never told Paul. I don't know when she finally told him. Because I never knew Paul. See, he died when we were in Virginia.
This was, well, he was still alive.
Oh, yes, yeah. And I didn't know that he didn't know it, because I saw him a couple of times and just was real coy. And then I realized that he didn't know what anything about it. He called me one Sunday, said he was going out to the farm. Would I like to go with him?
Out where he had his Belgian horses?
Uh-huh. And that's the most time I ever spent with him. That was the next summer. Because, as I say, Bill was gone by this time. And so, I mean, it was all just correspondence until we were married in February of 42.
When did you first date Bill? Aside from that time in high school that you mentioned,
Yeah,
when you
well,
were just a freshman.
I guess kind of off and on here and there. I'm not aware of it particularly. There again, he was in Worland or at Laramie. I was in Cody or at Provo. So it was a sort of a catch as catch can. Yeah. I remember he took me as far as Worland to go back to Provo that same Christmas, and I had the cramps and nauseated to beat. And at the time there was no road from Meeteetse to Thermopolis. My kids can't believe that I'm that old, or that that road is that young, whichever way you want to look at it. So we went around through Cali, and we stopped at Uncle Grant's for me to throw up. And then went on around, and my ride was from Lovell. They were to pick me up in Worland. And Bill got me a hotel room, because I was going to, go on through the night with him, but I just couldn't take it anymore. And the hotel called me up at 4 o'clock, and I caught my ride and went back to But as I say, all our courtship was all letters. I've got a box of letters downstairs. Yuck, you wouldn't believe it.
So the third year in college at BYU, was that your last year in college?
Yeah. And then the next summer, see, I got the job working at the drugstore with Quinn. And I made the deal with Mother and Copies Jewelry that my paycheck was mailed directly to Copies to buy my sterling.
I see.
And so one time asking Dad for money for the show ticket, well, what kind of thing is this? You're working, and he didn't realize this arrangement. But I was able to buy 6 place settings. And Marjorie and Aunt Jessie at the time were to give me each a place setting to go with it, and they never did. So the 6 was all I had, but it took, well, from June into December to get it all. But the value of it now is like the difference in your watch.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, because, see, I was working for $45, $50 a month. But it bought that much. Yeah.
Let's go back to your list, because we only have about 10,
Well,
12 more minutes.
Yeah. My list, I just kind of concluded with when Mother came to Virginia.
Good.
Because after that, see, then I was no longer at the house,
What did you do during the time Bill was in England?
Well, of course, see, I lived with Mrs. Griever. Mr. Griever died in February. Bill went overseas in March or April. And he felt it was very important that I be with Mrs. Griever, which in theory was a good idea, but I would never do it again. But at that time, Quinn wanted me to go back to work at the drugstore. Why, I just loved to. So I went to Mother and told her all about how she could raise Paul. Dad says, Mary, does Bill send you an allotment? Yes. Are you hungry? No. Do you have plenty of clothes? Yes. Your mother is not to look after your children. just to get, so you can get out of the house. She's here for an emergency. And of course he was right, because that's all I wanted was to get out of the house, you know. And it never occurred to me that Mother wouldn't just be delighted.
Well, after all, it's a grandchild.
Why, yes.
Everybody
yes.
knows that grandmothers love their grandkids.
Sure. Paul and I went over there for dinner one time. And you remember that dining room table, the legs like this and then a V at either end at Mother's? Anyway, Paul had a black cocker, Butch, that went with him every place. And Butch was in this V where Dad was going to sit down.
Mm-hmm.
We were all sitting at the table when Dad came and sat down. He got in there with a damn dog. Paul never said a word. He just got up, called his dog. The two of them went out the door on their way home. And Dad had to go chase him and coax him to come back. And that's the last time Dad called him a damn dog.
How old was Paul at the time?
Less than, around 2.
Is that all?
Yeah.
So he was just old enough to be able to talk.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 2.5, because Bill came home from overseas when he was almost 3.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to California then with Bill until the war was over.
Where were you in California?
In Victorville. We stayed at a motel called the Green Spot, and it literally was the green spot of Victorville. That little old patch of lawn in front, and that was it. So then we stayed with some people in the mountains up above there. That's where we were when the war was over.
Well, now, just a minute. So Bill came back from England before peace was declared, in other words.
Yeah, of course peace was over in Europe, but he came back to train to go to
Japan.
to go to Japan.
Yeah.
Yes. So he was in Victorville when VE Day came, or VJ Day.
VJ Day.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And then what happened?
Then we came home by way of San Francisco.
But how did he get permission to come home?
Well, the war was over.
So?
So, I mean, actually, he had to go to, let's see, I guess, now, he went to